Hi guys. Well, here we are at the end of the Cold War. I know that for many of you guys, this time and distance learning has been really challenging because you're trying to learn on your own or because of things going on at your house or whatnot. So I just want to applaud everyone who has been doing a great job on their assignments or did a great job this last week. I want to remind you we have one more week to go. So please keep that in mind. You will not have any finals. So that's a pretty sweet deal. So hang in there. Let's get through this last week together. So the end of the Cold War, usually, I'll be honest, we take about 3 weeks in class to do this, and we have a couple other extra weeks to do some more current modern world stuff. So, it's a little unfortunate how we had to change things up with only an hour of work a week. Definitely cuts into the curriculum, but it is what it is. And I think this is still very important information. So let's go through it. The first question I stole from Yvette. I thought you had a really nice answer. So the question was, how did Gorbachev's policies lead to a new map of Europe and Asia? And Yvette wrote a multi-sentence answer, even though it wasn't required. So thank you very much. So Gorbachev's policies led to a new map of Europe and Asia because they led to unrest across the Soviet Empire. Now, you could have stopped there, but you've been working really hard and doing such a great job, and you kept going with more details that proved to me you did the reading. So great job. You continued on to say a powerful democracy movement was sweeping the region. Thank you for actually identifying that change that's happening. And one by one, communist governments fell and became independent. Excuse me, a little cough there, not coronavirus, but a little cough. All right, that fantastic answer, continuing to do excellent work that you've done all year long. So thank you so much for that. The second question slide actually had 3 answers. So Luce, I borrowed from you again, another one of my students who's been working hard all year long and continues to just do excellent work. So first question, what does the cartoon suggest about the state of the Soviet Union under Gorbachev? And so Luce wrote, the cartoon suggests a broken Soviet Union with an unstable leader. So absolutely, definitely things were getting a little hairy. Question number 2 asked, I actually applaud you guys get some water. Okay, I'm back. So second question, what does it imply about Gorbachev's future? So Luce wrote, the cartoon implies that Gorbachev will soon fall and ruin the Soviet Union even more than what it already is. So she's right. And when we talk about ruin the Soviet Union from the United States perspective, it's actually, a positive thing because you're ending this totalitarian regime in a communist dictatorship. So we see it as a good thing, but absolutely people who are, full on Soviets saw it as a bad thing. So I like that you use that word ruin because from their perspective, that's what was going to happen. Question 3, how does this cartoon communicate ideas without using any words? So Luce wrote, the cartoon is able to communicate the ideas of Gorbachev's fall by visually showing how weak the Soviet Union is, as well as show a clumsy leader who cannot help fix it. So as we know, in times of crisis, leadership is so important. And the Soviet Union not only being in crisis was significant, but also because it had so much domination over parts of the world. So this is really a big, big deal. All right, thank you, Luce, for all 3 of these wonderful answers. All right, CO, again, another student's been working super hard all year long. So again, a multi-sentence answer to the question. Thank you. All right, so how did glasnost in the Soviet Union lead to the end of communism in Eastern Europe? So CO wrote, glasnost in the Soviet Union led to the end of communism in Eastern Europe by ending censorship and encouraging people to discuss the country's problems. He also called for restructuring of government and the economy, which led to unrest across the Soviet Empire. All right, excellent job with that answer right there. One of the things that makes me sad about being in distance learning is I have a really fun simulation about the end of the Soviet Union that obviously we weren't going to be able to do, and I certainly enjoy it every year. It's just so fun. So I don't know. Come back next year. Maybe we could do it. It'd be fun. We could do it at lunch one day. I don't know. All right. This question, Manuel, I thought, look at all these sentences. You guys just stands out to me, and then I read it, and I'm like, all right, great job, great answer. So this one should have had multiple sentences because I am asking you to consider China, Vietnam, North Korea, and Cuba in this answer about how communist countries reacted to the collapse. And so Manuel wrote, People's Republic of China introduced capitalism in China, and its effect was an economic boom. So they did They do still have communism there. They still are a totalitarian regime, but yes, they do have free market in certain zones. So there's certain economic zones. And this took place in part because of what was known as the Tiananmen Square massacre. So again, something else that we were unable to cover in this distance learning, which is unfortunate, but that was a very significant event. All right, Vietnam opened itself up to the world and established diplomatic relations with the United States, and Vietnam turned into a leading exporter of coffee to the world. Not just that, but also manufactured goods. So if you look at the label on a lot of your clothes, you will see it is made in Vietnam. All right, North Korea refused to reform their economy or politics, so a lot of people starved in North Korea. Again, one of the things that makes me sad about distance learning is we did talk a little bit about Korea, but not like we would have in the classroom. And so that's kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. And Manuel, your answer is excellent because that's exactly what happened. All right. And then Cuba's economy deteriorated after the collapse of the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union had been funneling a lot of money into Cuba. And the United States has a strict trade embargo on Cuba. It was somewhat lifted during the Obama administration, but then Trump administration did kind of reinstate it. So, for example, travel to Cuba is very, very difficult and has been for quite some time. And so that's just one example of the embargo. And there's always the joke about the Cuban cigars, which I don't know, maybe they're great. I really don't know. But anyways, all right, Hallie, another one of my students, just working so hard all year long, just doing such a great job. And always so positive, so appreciate that. So why did America's position as the sole superpower produce mixed reactions? So Hallie wrote a wonderful complete sentence answer. America's position as sole superpower caused some nations to feel that America was overstepping and acting as a world policeman, while others felt comforted by their power as a protector. So absolutely, if you were an ally of ours, you probably were like, all right, that's awesome. And if you were not, you felt a little bit fearful about what was going to happen next, especially if you had been linked to the Soviet Union. So definitely a dual kind of situation depending on where you stood yourself. All right, so thank you so much, Hallie, for addressing both of those. That's great. All right, Ozzy. Ozzy has stepped up and done such a great job during distance learning. I'm just so proud of you, Ozzy, for all your hard work. You're such a nice young man, and you've always done your best for me, but boy, you are flourishing and just doing great. So thank you for that. So why was the Soviet Union unable to keep up with the market economies of the West? So Ozzy wrote, the Soviet Union was unable to keep up with the market economies of the West because the Soviet Union had a command economy in which the government controlled industrial production. And you're exactly right. The government dictated exactly what would be produced and how it would be produced and what raw materials each production facility got. And we know the government doesn't always do the best job in doing things. You know, we joke about having to go to the DMV and you have to have your appointment months in advance. And then when you get there, you have to wait a long line. Well, the DMV is a government controlled agency. And so, you know, there's an aspect of that maybe would have been done better in the free market where, you know, hey, if people are fed up with waiting that long, they would go somewhere else. So, you know, when the government doesn't do the best job and if it controlled everything you can imagine. I mean, we have to put up with the government. For example, for the DMV, that's the only place you can go to get your driver's license. Schools is another example, although there are alternatives, both with private schools and charter schools and online schools and different things. So that's not quite as good of an example. But if you think about something like the DMV, and you know, another example of this would be the post office. And now we have options. So who knows what will happen in the future? And what I mean by options are like UPS, FedEx, right? Okay, Cecilia, again, wonderful, hardworking student, always doing your best. And I think, you know, look at this answer, you guys. Some of you are writing one sentence, which I know you're like tired of this in school and blah, blah, blah. But look at this hard work I'm getting from some kids. It's so cool. So how did Gorbachev's reforms lead to the breakup of the Soviet Empire? So Cecilia wrote, Gorbachev's reforms led to the breakup of the Soviet Empire because he created glasnost, which allowed openness in the country to talk about the country's problems uncensored. So now that people can say, hey, this sucks, right? Which they hadn't been able to do before. Remember those gulags, right? Don't want to go to a gulag. So this soon caused the country to turn into turmoil and mass revolt against the country. against the government, excuse me. Eastern European countries and Baltic states fought to gain their full independence. This soon caused the Soviet Union to cease to exist. And it really was kind of a rapid fire evolution, something that had been there and been there for so strong for so long, literally within a year was gone. When I talked to my dad about history and things like that. This is something he still can't quite believe because again, he was born right after World War II in 1945. So he grew up with it. And as his early childhood, boy, they had drills about what would happen if the Soviets attacked or launched a missile or this and that. And so he grew up, in this great kind of Cold War fear. And he just can't believe still that they're gone, even though it's been, 30 years now. All right, Diana, another student, boy, just stepping up, working hard, doing your best all times. So thank you for this answer. Why were Eastern Europeans able to break free of communist governments and Soviet domination in the late 1980s? And Diana wrote, Eastern Europeans were able to break free of communist governments and should be just Soviet domination. We got an extra word there, no big deal, in the late 1980s because they wanted to change. And also the communist governments were starting to become weak. And you're exactly right. And if we go to the other side of the globe into China in 1989, that's when the Tiananmen Square massacre occurred. And that those actions by those Chinese students inspired students across Eastern Europeans and across Eastern Europe and also workers across Eastern Europe. Okay, I got to go a little faster. I'm talking too much. I'm going to run out of time. Ryan, you're doing such a great job during distance learning. I love this answer that you gave me. How did Gorbachev's reforms lead to the breakup of the Soviet Empire? Gorbachev's reforms destroyed the Soviet system and led to the collapse of the communist regime. This happened because the Soviet regime relied on tight control of all aspects of society. Thank you, Ryan. This answer made me so happy. This is awesome. Such a great response to this question. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, and Taylor. Taylor, another student, consistently awesome all year long. Thank you so much. And I just love this answer because you equally addressed both parts of the causes and effects. I had to send a lot of these back to kids who only did causes or only did effects. So many of you did answer the question correctly, read the question correctly, and that was awesome. And here's a great example of that. So the causes of the Cold War was tensions between the two nations at the end of World War II. The effect of that was that nations were fighting and making the war go on and on. The use of nuclear weapons was another cause of the war. The effect of nuclear weapons was that war to become worse because people were afraid of being bombed since the power of the nuclear weapons were increasing. The fear of communism in the United States was a cause in the Cold War because of the very end of communism was declining around the world after Gorbachev's reform. So I liked how you you said a cause and then you immediately addressed the effect of that cause. So not all students did that in that way. Many students started off with a couple causes and then a couple effects. But that linking of the two was really an awesome thing. So thank you, Taylor, for that answer. I appreciate it. And that's that last slide. So in closing, guys, we have one more week. Your assignment is going to be a little shorter this week. It's going to be a little different this week. And, I just want to continue to thank all of you guys. If you're missing some work or haven't been getting your work in, please buckle down and do everything you can this last week. Again, no finals, okay? And I am going to be strict on my grading policy. I mean, I laid it out at the beginning, and I do want to hold you guys accountable for this distance learning time. So thanks to everyone who stepped up and hasn't missed a beat, and that's the majority of you guys. If you have missed a beat, hey, do a great job this week, and let's see where y'all land. Please reach out if you've got problems, if you've got concerns, if you need help, if there's something going on I need to know. If you don't tell me, I don't know, and I do above and beyond everything want to help you guys because you are my kids. So please keep me updated, and please take care, and please stay healthy, and I will talk with you guys again soon. All right, thanks, guys.